Good afternoon, and welcome to Oracle Social Live. This afternoon, we'll be talking to you about the Facebook NewsFeed. I'm Sarah Vabulis, and I'm joined with Sarah DeThomasis. Both of us are on the social partnerships team here in North America. We're really looking forward to the presentation today, and we hope that you are too.
Of utilizing Facebook posts to make your brand really well known. So with that, Sarah DeThomasis is going to lead the first part of the training as far as talking to us about strategy, and then I'm going to move through and talk about how to utilize Sarah's strategy using the SRM tool.
Hi everyone, thanks Sarah. We made it easy for you. We both have the same name, so if you get confused, that's who we are. There's two pictures of us. You can tweet with us at Sarah DeThomasis and at Sarah Vab. So jumping into this, Facebook has made some changes to their news feed. They've made some changes to the interface, which you may have seen in the news recently. We're not really going to focus on that today. What we're going to focus on are some changes they have made to the back end, to the algorithm, that really favors newsworthy content via URL shares. As a user of Facebook, you probably have noticed this yourself when you've been scrolling through your news feed, seeing more and more news stories that have been either shared by your friends or shared by pages maybe even that you don't even like, but your friends have engaged with that content. What I mean by URL shares there is those are the posts that are the shares of content from websites that have the metadata associated with the original links that hold the content on the website. So brands now that could be considered content creators, and that's just another word for brands that could be putting out this newsworthy content that Facebook would be preferring, either identified by Facebook or just those content creators that are putting out the newsworthy type of posts. They will be favored over other brands that post things like promotional content, sales-related content. Memes have become very, very popular on Facebook, and Facebook really wants to get more towards the really quality content over the kind of fun, sticky sort of memes that have been really popular in the past kind of year to year and a half. So Facebook really wants to kind of take some market share, obviously, from Twitter that's kind of seen a little bit more as a news vehicle for social media users, and they obviously have the critical mass there on their platform, and so they really want to start to take some of that market share and to have the users actually glean news stories from their platform and not have to go searching elsewhere. So these are just some quick stats for you. 47% of U.S. adults who use Facebook are consuming news, and that's 30% of the total U.S. adult population use Facebook to seek out news. So that's pretty huge, and for brands maybe that are traditional CPG companies or retail brands, that kind of creates a little bit of concern for those brands that aren't traditional publishers. They don't have content that they promote on their website. Maybe they have press releases that talk about product launches, etc., but they don't have a blog. They're not a Huffington Post. They're not a BuzzFeed. They're not even a Yahoo, where they're pumping out stories left and right. It's a lot more of product-related news and things like press releases. And so that really, if you are a brand that is in one of those industries, that really will create some need for you to strategize and figure out how you want to take advantage of this, but take advantage of it in a very strategic way. I always like to recommend people to really focus on what your core goals and objectives are as a business. Is it important for you to drive traffic to your website? Because with this kind of new realm that we are going into with Facebook and the algorithm, they are saying that these kind of newsworthy URL share posts are increasing greatly clicks to the website. If that's not something that's a core need for your business, then this might not relate quite so much. But really, all of the kind of the when you think of Facebook and all of the content that's promoted via Facebook and all of the content that's promoted via your website, really think of it as a 360-degree feedback loop. And so you want one thing to feed to the other and vice versa. And really something that is maybe published in Facebook doesn't necessarily even have to be published by you if it ultimately leads back to your brand's presence. So talking a little bit about what we know. So some key points, and this is hugely valuable information, and as we all know, Facebook does make changes all the time, and so please do not take this as gospel by any means. But as of the most recent discussions that we have had, we know that clicks count more than likes, but less than comments or shares in the new algorithm. And so that may seem kind of confusing, but what that really means is that clicks are more valuable than liking content. So for instance, if on your website you have buttons and Facebook plugins that just show likes, and you know, obviously you want people to like your content, but you also might have a Facebook plugin that is a share button. So because we know that sharing the content is very powerful, you might even want to get rid of that like button because it's not as valuable. You want instead to give people only one opportunity to share that content. Also, a comment on a shared post from a friend is the most powerful metric in the algorithm. So similarly, as I just mentioned, when you are creating opportunities, say you're a publisher or say you're a retail brand that has created a blog that is relevant to what you're trying to do in terms of your goals and objectives, but also relevant to what's going on in your industry, what's going on in pop culture, etc. You want to give people the opportunity to share your posts and share your content or share your content from your Facebook page and then inspire friends to comment on it. So when you're considering the different kinds of plugins on your website or the different kinds of copy that you're assigning to each of your Facebook posts, always consider that you want to put some copy along with it if you're publishing to Facebook that inspires people to ask their friends questions, to ask themselves questions. So they're not just simply sharing their content without any kind of backstory or supporting information. So this also means that you can increase post frequency. This is a huge one because for a very long time, brands have really kind of shied away from posting even more than, say, 5 times a day. Brands have tried to look at, kind of what is their sweet spot, usually around maybe like 3 to 5 posts a day, and really anything that they would do that goes over that kind of gives people a little bit of, anxiety that they will see less and less and less and less reach over time. But Facebook has said, as long as you have engaging, newsworthy content to support the increase in your post frequency, then that's a positive thing. And so this will have to take a lot of testing, and you'll have to look at, what do you want to achieve for your page? What kind of content even makes sense for your page to publish? And see, let's try for 1 month, we want to increase our post frequency by 10%, the next time by 20%. And always keep in mind if you have any outliers or any kind of tentpole events or campaigns or paid media that might skew your data, that's definitely going to be something that you need to take into consideration. Next, with the increase of post frequency, brands are likely to see a reduced reach per post, but as a whole, your reach will increase. And this seems as a little bit of a no-brainer, but definitely I think that a lot of brands like to look at posts kind of in a vacuum, and it might make you a little bit nervous and think that you're not successful if you do see a reduced reach per post. But overall, you should see, if you're doing a good job and you have great content, overall you should see reach as a whole increase. And for some partners, and this is just a metric that they have given us, some clicks increase by multiples of 30 to 40%, and this may seem crazy, but some even 1,000%. And so obviously that is a huge range, and that just kind of goes to show the point that this is different for every single brand and every single industry, and depending on your content strategy and, the core competencies of your business, this can mean different things for you. Like I said before, for publishers, it's a lot easier. You can very easily see, we have content on our website, we have blog posts, we have bloggers, we have editorial staff. We can easily push out this content, but for some maybe retail businesses, they're going to have to really put some thought into putting content on their website. So for one brand that tested this new publishing strategy, and this is just an example, don't know the industry, this is just something that we got from Facebook, net likes to the page stayed constant, meaning as the page increased and also their unlikes also increased, but the net likes stayed constant. So there wasn't any kind of disturbance. Their likes didn't skyrocket and their unlikes stayed the same. Similarly, their unlikes didn't skyrocket, and that's something to also keep in mind, because when we've kind of tested increasing post frequency in the past with a lot of accounts, we've noticed that sometimes that causes a greater increase in the unlikes metric, and obviously that's something that we don't want. But sometimes we understand that you are going to increase your fans, but you're also going to increase your unlikes. But that's okay, because sometimes you're catering your content and your communication strategy to your target audience, and you want the people who are really going to engage most with your content to be the fans of your page. So that's maybe not always a negative thing, but as long as the net is constant, then that's a positive. Also, outbound traffic increased 78% in this example, and every positive metric on average increased. So that's things like likes, comments, shares, etc. And obviously then clicks per post increased as well. So if you take just an example, or take a second to go on Facebook and look at maybe Huffington Post as an example. If you take a scroll down their page, it will take you a really long time to get to the day before the day that you're currently on in terms of their posts. So if you go and you navigate to the post by page and you're on their timeline and you scroll, you'll be scrolling probably for a while. So you'll see that Huffington Post has obviously adhered to this kind of new way of thinking and has tested it out and is seeing a lot of success. So definitely check that out and see some examples. And definitely when you're doing, your competitive research, or you're doing it alongside your Oracle reps, always look at, what is the post frequency, and that's something to keep in mind too when you're doing your measurements. And if you're comparing competitively, how are we performing and how are our competitors performing? If your competitors are, for instance, posting, 10%, 30%, 300% more often than you are posting, it becomes really difficult to compare apples to apples because they don't have the same kind of content strategy. So always some things to just keep in mind. So this relates also to Facebook's new trending feature. So if you've maybe seen there on the right side of your Facebook page, there is a new trending module. And that highlights breaking and trending news stories on Facebook, bringing brand posts on those subjects to the forefront of the conversation. If you checked it out, you can click on each of these topics and pull up basically a news feed of posts that relate to that topic. Particularly content creators in this instance get special focus in Facebook trending. So, for instance, the Huffington Post has been doing a very good job at adhering to this new way of thinking with the Facebook algorithm shift. Their post would probably be one of the first ones that you would see. And this is just yet another reason that brands need to really listen to what's trending around the web, and most importantly, if relevant, jump onto that trend with published content from your page that's in line with your content and communication strategy. And that one I really cannot stress enough, because a lot of times when brands are noticing that Facebook algorithm has shifted, they really just kind of want to immediately pivot and jump on whatever new change has happened and try to capitalize on it for their brand. This really is a whole new world and has really kind of changed everything that we had known before in terms of especially post frequency and content. And so you'll really want to put a lot of thought into this, into your strategy, and say, is this something that makes sense for our brand? How can we jump on these trends, and how can we remain relevant in the space? So here's just one example from Taco Bell, and we'll just breeze right through this. But if hopefully you haven't been living under a rock, because if you aren't living under a rock, you know that Taco Bell has a new breakfast menu. So that's pretty exciting. I know I'm pretty excited about that. So their page didn't even post that day on Facebook, but so many news outlets and user shares helped the brand trend on Facebook throughout the day, even reaching the top spot in the trend. They did tweet about it on Twitter, and it's on the top trend there, but it really goes to show that they don't even have to put out this content themselves. It's other people that are putting out content that are bringing their brand to the forefront. This is also important to note because this could affect your brand negatively. So if there are posts or news stories that are out there that are about your brand that you actually didn't even put out, you don't even have a press release, it's not even about one of your campaigns, but maybe there's some kind of negative story going around. If your page is and your brand is involved in that, it doesn't even take your posting about it to bring it to the forefront for users to see. So also just showing a little bit of the data, Taco Bell, obviously, like we said, didn't post on Facebook on that day, but it was the highest day of fan growth during that month after trending on Facebook for that day. So that's huge. So for Taco Bell, this was a positive thing. It was, yay, we are getting waffle tacos, and that's awesome, and we want to like Facebook or Taco Bell on Facebook because of that. They didn't even have to post about it. But similarly, this could affect your brand in a negative way if there's a lot of negativity circulating around your brand. That also is important to keep in mind when you're looking at your metrics in terms of, say, comments or posts on your page. If you have something that's negative that happens with your brand, it might not be something that you've even necessarily posted about. If people are going to your page or going on your existing posts and commenting and saying negative things and reacting to what's maybe in the news, this Facebook trending will bring that top of mind for them if it's something that people are talking about. And you might have to correct for that those outliers in data of people, even though they're talking negatively about your brand, but they're increasing the comments and replies on your page. So this is just one quick example, and this can show itself in many, many different ways on Facebook. This is just one example. As I mentioned before, the newsfeed layout is changing. If you haven't gotten it already, you will likely get it soon. And so don't take this screenshot as exactly what it will look like for you. Even around our office, we've seen millions of different instances of how this actually looks. But as you can see here, when a friend even just likes a post story, users might see stories like this in their newsfeed with other suggested content. Like I said, this can show in many different ways. In fact, in the kind of newer way that it's showing, it's even more robust and suggesting more than even just two stories. You can see here that you can also click a drop down, but we all know that users having to click a drop down creates an extra step, so they're probably not going to do that. But here, it will just make sure that users see the content that is related to those stories. So even if, your fan base isn't necessarily sharing your posts or people aren't necessarily on your website sharing your content, if you're on trend and talking about things that are relevant, you can have your content surface here to even people who don't even like your page to begin with. So that's a really great example of, we've been relying on paid media so long for page growth and increase in engagement. And this is kind of Facebook throwing us a bone. It's saying, if you're on trend, you're sharing newsworthy content, even if, maybe you're not the most popular page in the world, if you're doing what you should be doing and you're on topic and on strategy for your particular page, then you have the chance to show up in users' newsfeeds. So this is a little bit of an example of a couple of different things. I've used Huffington Post as an example because that's probably the easiest way to think of a publisher of content. On the left, we have a screenshot from Huffington Post Facebook page. On the right, we have a screenshot of the exact story on HuffingtonPost.com. This is a great story, really emotional, pulling at your heartstrings. And as you can see on the left, they've entered copy, go Kevin go, with a URL post. Now, what I mean by that is when you're posting a URL post, it is pulling in the metadata associated with the URL that you're posting content from. So as you can see here, it's pulling up the title, Teen with Down Syndrome Joins the Harlem Globetrotters and Thinks Three-Pointer, which is awesome, and then has a little bit of a blurb of copy below that. So if this is something that your brand sees as important for you, and maybe you have a blog, maybe you are a publisher and have this kind of content, it's vitally important that you make sure that the image that pulls through is high resolution, that fits the area that Facebook will pull it into, that your title looks eye-catching, that your description is applicable, because sometimes the metadata associated with URLs that pulls through is not actually good for posting. And so that's where people kind of use the big photo post, write their own copy, and just insert a link in there. But Facebook is actually preferring this kind of post over that kind of post. And by no means take that as the gospel. That's what they're telling us. And Facebook still says you do want to have a healthy mix of content. But for Huffington Post, because they are a publisher, they probably should stick with just this URL type of post. That doesn't mean that they can't write Go Kevin Go. They can still do that. They could still tag other pages, which we know recently from Facebook also helps to put your content in other people's news feeds that maybe are fans of those pages that you tagged. So those are great examples of things that you can do to use the URL post feature. Another thing I want to mention on HuffingtonPost.com is you can see that they have like, share, tweet, pin it, email, and comment. And so those are greatly placed right at the top, right at the beginning of the article. They're above the fold, so users don't have to scroll down and find them. And they're making it very easy for people to share. As I mentioned before, we know that sharing the post is more valuable than liking the post. And depending on your brand, you might want to get rid of the like altogether. You might want to just have people have the opportunity to share things because you want them to share the content to get into people's news feeds and to hopefully become trending. So that's something that you have to decide for your brand in particular if that makes sense for you. I also would recommend to make these buttons a lot bigger. Huffington Post, I think, does a good job, but I don't think that there's really very many brands out there that are doing a really stellar job of this. But make buttons bigger. Make it really easy for people to interact and to share. You never want people to scroll around and kind of search for where they need to share your content. It also, if you have a long form piece where you have to kind of scroll a bunch of times to get to the end of the article, why not also repeat all of your sharing functions at the bottom of that? Why not share it also at the middle of the article so that people always have that top of mind when they're reading through the article and they're finishing the article? Also, Facebook kind of recommends to repeat the button multiple times. That's not just my suggestion. Just kind of put your user hat on and say, if I was a user, what would make this easier for me? And then create your strategy that way. As you can see here too, it won't really take necessarily Huffington Post to even be talking about this article themselves. It's great that they did post about the article themselves, but say Huffington Post's community manager was sleeping on the job or sick that day, and they forgot to post about Kevin. But there were a large number of users who were visiting HuffingtonPost.com, and they loved the story. It was really compelling, and they shared it. This story could easily become trending, and Huffington Post wouldn't have had to post about it at all. That's just kind of comparing it just to the Taco Bell example that we have. So just touching quickly on Facebook Paper. Facebook Paper is Facebook's new mobile app. This is kind of just really in line with where Facebook is wanting to kind of become more of a news vehicle. So Facebook Paper is taking the best content from friends, brands, content curators, and displaying it in a rich media newspaper-like format. So Facebook's rewarding the best publishers of the best content by showing them predominantly at the beginning of these subsections, and these publishers may not have even shared the content themselves. Facebook says if you want to be one of the emerging voices and well-known publications that Paper gives the preference to, you've got to do great stuff and keep doing great stuff. And that's a really simple way of saying stay on strategy for your brand, capitalize on your core competencies, capitalize on what your goals and objectives are, find a way to make this algorithm shift work for you, and do it in a really strategic, tested manner. So obviously, Facebook Paper user stats are pretty sparse as of right now. And so don't worry, oh, if we're not included on Facebook Paper, then we're really not doing a good job. If you're doing a good job putting out great stuff and you're still doing great stuff and you continue to do great stuff, then that will help you to increase the visibility of your content in the newsfeed, even on desktop and on the traditional Facebook mobile app. And then things like success on Facebook Paper will just come as a result because you're doing a great job other places. So that does it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Fabulous to talk a little bit about our platform and how you can bring all of these new strategies to light by using the SRM. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Gosh, that was awesome. I learned a lot, and I hope that the folks who are tuned in and are watching this on YouTube later also learned a lot. So thank you so much for your point of view and your time today. So as Sarah said, I'm going to move now into a live demo using the SRM tool to show you guys how to manage all of the posts that you can create using these great tips and tricks that Sarah pointed out, as well as move into our analytics part of the tool to show you where you guys can manage your analytics to know how well your posts are doing so that you can figure out that sweet spot, if you will, of mixed up content to ensure that you are reaching the folks that you want to. So I'm moving over into my Safari now. So I'm logged in here to SRM. This is really awesome and exciting and great to see this happening here. So I'm logged into just our Brookstrat Farmers Market account, which is a great brand that we've created here at Oracle. So I'm in our Publish tool, which is where we can push out all of our content to our own channels. So our Facebook pages, our Twitter accounts, Google+, all that great stuff that we own. So all I want to do here is go in and create a post. On this Create a Post page, we've got tons and tons of options. So what Sarah was talking about is making sure that you post a lot of URL posts, which I know kind of goes against what we've all been doing really for about the last 18 to 24 months, is pushing out what we call those big photos. We really want to switch that attitude to do more URL posts. So we'll just start here by entering our post name. Fresh new veggies. It's spring, so we're going to have some good stuff coming out. We also recently, in our SRM platform, added in workflows. So you're able to select a workflow from a drop-down menu here to make sure that this goes through a specific path of approval process. So you can put in steps in the workflow that include having, maybe I create the post and then I have Sarah here come in and add in the content for the post. So she adds in the link as maybe well as the creative, and she can edit it up to make it look really great before it launches to Facebook. And then from there, Sarah and I have our manager approve it. So that way that the content is approved before it goes out. So all of these things can be easily managed in workflow, and definitely encourage you guys to dive in and take a look at some of that. From here, you can select your streams that you want to publish to. So we are focusing mostly on Facebook today, so I'm going to leave that there. And then we can put in our content. So we'll type in anything that we want. So come on by today and check out our brand new vegetables. And so then we want to put in a link. We'll do, let's use Whole Foods in here. In here, all of the content is auto-populated, as Sarah talked about, but metadata that gets pulled in for a link. So our system allows you to select any of the images that you want in here to then publish out about. So let's see if there's anything that I like. If I'm happy with any of these images, I can use one of these, but if I'm not, I can come in and add in a new piece of media. Click that button, or I can come in and use anything that's pre-populated. So maybe I like these peppers that are in here, so I'll go ahead and use those. Also, what I can do is edit the metadata. So if I don't like this, we'll call this fresh new veggies. We come in and write in our own text. So it scrapes off the first few characters of the text that's seen on the website, but we can come in and type in whatever we would like. Unlike Facebook, it's mandated, like you can't make these changes, but here within our system, you're able to. So we've got that included in here. We can also apply tags to our posts. Definitely recommend doing this. A lot of times, some of our customers will use tags to not only talk about maybe a campaign that they're working on, but we can add in tags that include URL posts or photo posts. So then you can get some easy comparisons in the analytics part of the tool. So you can measure those posts against each other to try to optimize and figure out what it is your fans are wanting to see. So we'll just keep scrolling down. We can schedule it if we would like. And then for Facebook options down here, we want to click into the photo options setting. So by default, we have this publishing as a big photo to our timeline photo album. We actually want to change this so it publishes out as a link to our news feed in order to fully engage those URL benefits that Sarah so aptly went over. So we'll make that change. We come up here and preview it. Are we happy with how this post looks? And if so, we can either publish it or click on the next page and review it. So on here, I'm just going to click Publish Post. And we can see that our post is currently publishing. If I go to the farmers market page here and refresh it, I can see that here's our post. So we can see here that, Facebook has changed a lot of the news feed. So now you're getting not just those little thumbnail images, but a nice large size image. So we've got this nice image included with the text that we plugged in, as well as that description that we've got down there. We've got our link that goes to the website that we can click in either spot. So you can see it's still a nice big visual image, but we're getting those added benefits of having that URL reach. So once you have a few of these posts under your belt, you can come in and take a look over at the Listen and Analyze part of the tool. So in here, we can take a look at our overall fan growth on the dashboard page, as well as our demographic breakdown and fan sources. But what we really want to look at is engagement. So on the engagement page here, what we're looking at is the number of page stories that have been created about the post. You can see the number of people talking about you, your number of engaged users, your page consumptions, as well as your page stories. So these are all really great pieces of data for you to look at to be able to measure the success of all of your posts. You can also see any of negative feedback, which would be things like hide your content from the news feed, unlike your page, reporting you as spam, all of those kinds of actions, as well as your top 10 most engaged users. So these are really popular items within SRM analytics to take a look at. You can also come in the All Posts section under Posts. You can see, let's see if we've got, let's choose a nice date range here. You can go back in time a number of months, and you can take a look at all of the posts that have been published during that time period and see the engagement rates on them. It's not loading for this particular account at this moment. Apologies for that. But what that'll do is allow you to take a look at your engagement rates for a particular date range, post versus post. So you can see your reach numbers. You can see exactly how many likes you've gotten, shares, and all that really great data that Sarah was talking about. That's really good to measure. but you can take that not only on a post level, but across your whole page. So that way you can ensure that you are doing nice numbers overall. Sure, you might lose some fans. Sure, you might lose overall reach on a per post basis, but in general, your reach should pop up pretty high. Another great section to look at here is this post section. What this allows you to do is look at how the content that you pushed. So if I'm looking at this Brookstreet Farmers Market page, we're posting a lot of photos. 73.8% of our content is a photo, and only 13.8% is a link. We definitely need to think about this and bump this up to publish out more links to fully take advantage of what Facebook has done with the news feed. So we can also come in here and take a look at our top posts for that time period and click in on them. Here we can get a nice summary of a particular post. Once this loads, we'll be able to see how many likes and shares and comments, all sorts of really good data. You can see any engagement that happened on it, as well as your overall impressions and reach numbers. These obviously are really important, so you can take a look and see how many folks you're actually reaching. You can also see how many people clicked on your photo if you publish a photo, or if there was a link, how many folks clicked on your link. So you're still able to track all of that. So these are just really great ways for you to take advantage of Sarah's really awesome advice that she gave in order to make sure that all of your posts are optimized to be able to reach all the individuals that you would like. If anybody has any questions, you can send them through the the WebEx chat here. Sarah and I'd be happy to take any questions that any of you guys have, but please do send them through the WebEx chat. We've got that open and am ready to answer any questions that you guys have. If not, no worries. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your participation in our first Oracle Social Live webinar. We'll be doing these every month and look forward to all sorts of great opportunities to talk with you guys. Cool. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but if you guys come up with any questions, please feel free to email me, sarah.vadulous@oracle.com, or tweet at Sarah or me, and we'll be happy to take that offline. So thanks so much for your time today, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.